My job is to introduce our three conference panelists. You'll see their pictures, but better than the pictures, you have the live ladies on the stage. And boys as they are as well. I am not going to read their bios, they're all in the book, but you see Dr. Katherine Giscombe of Panelists, who was here, First Lady here to my left, who's joined us.
Hey, thank you. It's so great to be here. This is the first North Carolina Governors Women's Conference that I've been to, so I'm just very excited to be able to share some of the research findings that have to do with women and work. Actually, these data that I'm going to be reporting to you are from the nonprofit organization Catalyst. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Catalyst, because actually a couple of speakers earlier today quoted our statistics. And we are a nonprofit that works to advance women in the workplace, and we do it basically by doing a census of very senior women, and we're the source for just how bad it is in terms of there being so very few women CEOs, top earners, and women on boards. But we do research that really digs into the reasons why, such as gender stereotyping, such as ingrained racism and sexism, and also the ineffectiveness of certain diversity and inclusion programs. But today I'm going to be talking about sponsoring women to success. And how many of you went to the Break Your Own Rules session earlier? Yeah, it was a really good session. And actually, the speaker talked a lot about sponsorship. And I'm going to be digging into that in a little bit more detail. And one thing that we found at Catalyst is that sometimes people don't really recognize sponsorship within organizations. I mean, the word mentoring is very popular, but actually when we have studied what it takes to get ahead, we literally found, we had a quote from someone in one of our studies that said, I've been in this company for years and years, I've gotten a couple promotions, I don't feel like I'm going higher, and I've been mentored to death. Like somehow I just need a little bit more than mentoring to move ahead. So again, one question we ask people is, is it mentoring or is it sponsorship? And there's a definition from one of the women we interviewed named Kathy Hannon, who is a partner at KPMG. And what she says is, a mentor will listen and speak with you, but a sponsor talks about you. And in terms of the difference, basically, mentors fulfill a number of functions. A mentor can be a person who provides emotional support to you as you struggle with issues and problems that you have at work. They often give you career advice. They can know the organization that you're working in and help you navigate organizational politics by filling you in on who's who or who's important, etc. They can also help a lot with skill development. Often people have mentors who have a skill in an area that they need development in, and certainly mentors are therefore very good at helping you do your current job and knowing your current organization so you can see where some opportunities are. But we found in our study that they are necessary, but they're insufficient for actual career advancement. Now, sponsors, on the other hand, and I think the speaker in the earlier session mentioned that, they are characterized by having power and having clout. So a sponsor is someone who's going to be in the senior levels of your organization. And it may be a little bit intimidating to get yourself in touch with those people, but those are the people who, behind closed doors, are going to fight for you as a protege. I mean, they're going to, as the speaker said before, even going as far as threatening to quit their jobs if you don't get a particular position or a stretch assignment or some type of high visibility role. So in our work, we have basically defined sponsors as career accelerators. We spent decades researching barriers, looking at the glass ceiling, and we know that there's really no one magic answer to advancing women, but what the research has told us is that sponsors are really a key element to help women move forward. So again, sponsors, they're behind closed doors, they're advocating for you, and they have the seniority and the level within your organization to actually provide you visibility and provide you access to powerful networks with their colleagues. I also want to just talk a little bit about challenges for racially, ethnically diverse women. At Catalyst, I'm actually the Vice President of Diverse Women and Inclusion, and I've spent over 10 years doing research studies on African American women, Latinas, and Asian women. And from those several studies that we've done, we know that it's not really a glass ceiling for diverse women. The metaphor that we've heard in our research is a concrete ceiling. It's dense, you can't see through it, it's harder to shatter. So overall, there's just a greater level of feeling excluded within work environments. And we did a study of women of color in professional services firms, and we had a big sample. We had white women as well as men of color. And we had these comparative samples partly because we wanted to strengthen our business case for the unique challenges that women of color face. And we did find statistically that the diverse women in our sample had a harder time getting promoted, navigating the work environment compared to white women, and also compared to men of color. So there really is a double whammy for diverse women. And one thing that's very difficult is the ingrained stereotyping within work organizations. You really need an advocate who will help you get past those ingrained barriers within the work environment to advance. So going back to sponsorship generally, we looked at pairs of sponsors and protégés, and there are actually 4 key components to a good sponsor-protégé relationship that we identified from our study. One is communication. It has to be clear, it has to be candid between the sponsor and protégé. Another is commitment, a commitment to one's own career, the sponsor's commitment to advancing the protégé's career. There has to be honesty, which is really part of good communication, and there has to be trust. And I'm going back to trust because this also relates to the particular challenges that diverse women face within work environments. I'm just drawing from another study that we did on building trust. And we looked at pairs of managers and direct reports, white male managers and diverse women direct reports. And what we found was that there's a key type of trust that unfortunately women of color are lower on in the work environment than white women, and that's called disclosure trust. And disclosure trust is when you're comfortable enough with another person, say your manager or a mentor or sponsor, comfortable enough to admit to weaknesses. For example, admitting to developmental needs that you have, or admitting that you made a mistake at work and you're looking for their counsel in addressing it. So it was not surprising within our research study to find that women of color were lower on this type of trust because there's so many barriers and negative stereotypes that we also found that women of color want to project just a very powerful image, don't want to admit mistakes, don't want to share vulnerabilities, and yet we know that if there's not a chance for a manager or a mentor or sponsor to help with those developmental needs, those needs won't be met. And we do within our research have just a very vivid anecdote about how a boss became a sponsor of a woman of color because she was willing to disclose sensitive information to him. She was doing a presentation, a high-profile presentation, within the first couple of weeks of a new job. And she did very poorly, she didn't answer questions well, and she actually came to her boss and said, I know I didn't do this well, I had been up with my son who had the flu the night before, I wasn't on point, and the boss was saying, he already knew about this from someone else at the meeting, but it signaled to him, her willingness to admit a mistake signaled to him that she was open to his advice. And as he said, they established a very trusting relationship. He was able to really help her move ahead, and as he said, she leapfrogged past her peers. Now, one thing that we like to emphasize at Catalyst is that there are certainly things that individual women can do to promote themselves, to gain sponsors, but we also want to give a message to those senior leaders out there about just the importance of not just sponsoring people who look like you. We say look broadly, look deeply, and look often. Ideally, there should be meritocratic environments where someone's objective performance is more important than similarity to a potential mentor or sponsor. one quote in our research that we like from a male sponsor who actually is fairly enlightened and has several women proteges. He says, "If I'm rewarding performance and showcasing performance and recognizing value contributions, then everyone has a fair shot at my sponsorship." But again, that's not going to happen unless senior leaders are willing to look broadly, look deeply, and look often, and not just at people who are similar to them. And finally, what individual women can do is we often advocate with mentors, and I think we'll make the same recommendations for sponsors, that usually there's not one person within a work environment who can satisfy all your career advancement needs. So you actually need to have almost a board of directors of mentors, and ideally a board of directors of sponsors. Now, to actually attract potential sponsors, what we say is that you really need to be a team player, you need to be reliable, very collegial, obviously perform above expectations, have the elevator speech where you talk about your strengths, about what you'd like to do, and become a known entity by interacting with many different people within the work environment. And I want to go back to diverse women for just a minute, because within our study of women of color in professional services, we asked about how many people and what types of people women in our study interfaced with. Like literally we said, if you want to know what's going on in your organization, who do you talk with? And we compared the responses from women of color, from white women, from men of color. And what we found was that women of color had the narrowest scope of network. They tended to talk more with people at their level and within their business units. And in fact, that narrowness of network actually led to fewer gains in career advancement and a lower intent to stay with the organization. So a reminder to everyone out there in terms of establishing relationships, making yourself visible, is really to be willing to go outside your comfort zone, to interface with people from different departments, different functions, not be shy about showcasing your accomplishments, and if you do this, you will be on the path to gaining sponsors and to being sponsored. Thank you.